YouTubers. Welcome back to professional video production on a shoestring budget. Today I want to talk about aerial photography. You can get some really dramatic shots from helicopters and planes. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different platforms that you might not have thought of, and things that are a bit more cost effective. Of course, as filmmakers, we all dream about going up in a helicopter. And of course, helicopters are the ideal platform. They can go almost anywhere. They can fly in controlled airspaces. They can fly low to the ground. They can fly at any speed as a filmmaker you want the pilot to go at. Because of their controllability, they can hover. They can turn so that you can tell the pilot where to go, so you can get the angle of the shot exactly as you want it. And yeah, so they're definitely the way to go. The downside to a helicopter, of course, is I think they started around $800 an hour, so it's a pretty expensive item on your budget. If you can afford it, great. But there's some other ways to go if you can't afford it. This footage here, you can see it's pretty shaky. I was just hitchhiking a ride during the course of a documentary. I wasn't paying the bill for the helicopter, so I didn't have any choice in when we left. And I think this was like in the middle of the afternoon. And even in a helicopter with the thermals, it was a hot summer day, and with the thermals coming off the ground, it was a pretty rough ride. I still got some great shots, but if you can control if you're paying for it and you can control when you go up, you want to try to go up in the morning or late in the day. Even dusk is great light, and the thermals normally have calmed right down. So that's important if you're going to go up in the air and you can control the times. Try to do it either early or late in the day. I wanted to show you another platform that I got some aerials with. It was this kind of funny looking plane with the dome, with the plastic dome on top. And I went from, in this case, I was doing an eco-forestry documentary, and I flew from Nanaimo to Tofino. And when we were traveling, the dome was closed. But when I wanted to shoot, he would slide the dome back so I could, get a nice clear shot without the dome in the way. You can see the difference here. Here's a shot with the dome closed. And you can see there's a bit of a tint to the dome, and then he slides it back, and it's a much better shot. But it's a fixed-wing airplane, so my view is kind of limited. I'm shooting forward, and I'm trying to avoid the wings and just get nice clear shots of the environment without the wings in the shots. So you're kind of limited. And of course the speed, he's traveling at a higher rate of speed, and you can't really control that. You can tell him what you want to shoot, and he can bank the airplane, and you can get some nice shots. It was pretty effective. The big benefit of this was I think it only cost me $225, and he took me from Nanaimo to Long Beach on the west coast of Vancouver Island. I'm pretty sure we were out for over an hour. The other benefit, because I was paying, I was able to call the shots on the time we flew, and we went out at dusk, and it was just a beautiful night. It was really calm, beautiful light. So, I think I got some really good stuff. It was a worthwhile $225. But you do have some limitations. And you see a lot of people, that was, as I showed you in the beginning, that was a low wing, fixed wing. So I'm shooting forward between the wing and the front of the plane. Another inexpensive plane that you can go up on would be a Cessna, with the high wing. But normally it's tough to, you got that strut, that wing strut there, and you're going to find that's getting in your way a lot. But it is a cheaper alternative than a helicopter. That's another way to go. But another way to go that you might not have thought of is one of these guys here. This was a documentary I did back in 1985. I'm shooting with a 3/4 inch deck and basically an industrial Panasonic camera. That's why the video is not that great. But I did a lot of nice sunset shooting, so I got some nice pictures because of the light. But this was a documentary that we were doing, so I didn't have to pay for the airtime. I was basically promoting the sport of ultralights. But I really enjoyed shooting from the front seat of one of these two-seat Beavers. It was a very enjoyable experience. They're a slow flying machine. One of the limitations with ultralights is, generally speaking, they're restricted. They're not allowed to go into restricted airspace, main airport airspace, things like that. But other than that, depending on what you want to do, they're a slow flying machine. They can get low, and you can get some really dramatic shots. As I said, I really enjoyed the experience. It was a lot of fun, and I felt safe for most of the time. But there was one experience that I'll never forget. Through the course of doing this documentary, I was following the progression of a student, the things that they would, teach him in the air, in the course of getting his ultralight pilot's license. And one of the things they teach is they get the student to put the ultralight into a spiral dive. And then the purpose of the exercise is, once the ultralight's in a spiral dive, the student has to get out of that spiral dive. And that's the purpose of the exercise. So when we were doing this, unbeknownst to me, the pilot didn't really warn me about this. As I was shooting the spiral dive, the pilot banked the ultralight into a steep bank. And I'm shooting the dive, and my eyes in the viewfinder of the camera. And I suddenly felt really queasy and quite uneasy. And I took my eye out of the viewfinder, and I realized my position. We were banked right over. And I had this moment of absolute terror, because it felt like I was going to fall right out of the ultralight. Of course, I was strapped in and I was safe, but it really felt like I was going to fall right out of the ultralight. And it's a funny thing, when your eye's in the viewfinder, you have kind of that perspective, and then when you take your eye out of the viewfinder, you get sort of a reality check. But that was the only time I think I really felt unsafe, and it was kind of an unannounced maneuver that he didn't warn me about. But that's an alternative for a platform, for a cheaper platform, to get up in the air and shoot some visuals. I think most ultralight parks, they have what they call a fun flight. That's like an introductory flight. And I think they're normally only about $50 for 30 or 40 minutes. So, even if you just wanted to get some aerials of a certain small town or something like that, or a river, or, it might be something you can consider. And there's ultralight parks, in most, big cities. So it's something you might want to consider. I enjoyed it, and I felt safe for the most part. If you can't afford that helicopter, that might be a way to go. So there you go. Just some different ideas on shooting on aerial platforms, and, when you're shooting up in the air. The next time, I want to talk about interview techniques, interviewing a subject for, if you're shooting a documentary or whatever. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.